You probably picture New York City as an eternal metropolis of steel and glass, a place that has always been loud, vertical, and crowded. We assume the grid has always been there, dominating the landscape. But the historical record reveals a completely different reality, a reality of silence, farmland, and wooden outposts clinging to the edge of a wild continent. Here is what is fascinating. Beneath the asphalt of modern Manhattan lies a ghost city that most have forgotten. Let me show you how this changes everything you think you know about the American metropolis. You're watching AI GoBack, resurrecting history one frame at a time. We begin our reconstruction in Manhattan in the year 1746. As we cross the churning waters of the East River, the roar of the modern city vanishes, replaced by the creak of timber and the slap of waves against the hull. The atmosphere shifts immediately. This is the foot of Wall Street, but there are no skyscrapers here to block the sun. Instead, Wall Street leads directly into the river, terminating at a ferry landing that serves as the colony's primary artery. This is the busiest place in town, a chaotic symphony of commerce where the old world meets the new. Merchants shout over crates of imported goods, travelers steady their nervous horses, and sailors tie off rugged sloops that have just braved the Atlantic. You can see a simple pavilion where passengers huddle, waiting for the next crossing to Brooklyn. Behind them, the skyline is low and modest. The buildings here still whisper of the city's origins, their stepped gables and brick facades, reflecting the stubborn endurance of old Dutch architecture from the days of New Amsterdam. It is a city in transition, holding on to its past while staring out at a widening world. The scene shifts dramatically as we move across the water to a frozen Brooklyn morning in the winter of 1760. If Manhattan is the center of trade, Brooklyn is a world of isolation. It is not yet an urban center. It is a sprawling patchwork of rural silence. Families live in small wooden houses anchored to the earth, surrounded by dormant fields and simple dirt roads that vanish into the white horizon. When the snow arrives here, time itself seems to slow down.
In this reconstruction, observe the heavy stillness. People are cutting wood, their breath visible in the biting air, gathering the fuel necessary to survive the night. Children play near the road, their voices carrying far across the open flatlands, while a horse stands patiently hitched to a sled. The houses are built low to the ground to cheat the wind, and gray smoke drifts lazily from chimneys, the only sign of life in a landscape dominated by winter. This is a society shaped entirely by the rhythms of agriculture. A day here isn't about stock prices or shipping schedules. It is about staying warm, preparing meals, and enduring the season. If you appreciate seeing these forgotten moments brought back to life, taking a second to like this video helps support more deep dive reconstructions. By 1763, the isolation begins to fracture. The British Empire has firmly tightened its grip on New York, transforming it into a critical colonial port. We are looking now at Fort George, standing guard at the southern tip of Manhattan. This structure is a stark reminder that New York's existence was tied to the sea and to war. The harbor is the city's lungs, and Fort George is its shield. In the harbor, ships of every size dance on the tide. Heavy merchant vessels, their holds bursting with sugar and tea, share the water with the imposing frigates of the British Navy. The fort sits ominously on the shoreline, its cannons aimed outward, a clear message of power projected toward the horizon. The Union Jack snaps in the wind, marking this territory as a jewel of the crown. But just a few miles away, the empire fades back into wilderness. Moving north to Harlem in 1765, the city feels like a distant rumor. This view looks nothing like the Harlem of today. It is a pastoral dreamscape of farmland and open sky. The houses are small islands in a sea of grass, separated by long stretches of untouched forest and gently sloping terrain. On the water, small fishing boats drift lazily, families traveling short distances or casting nets for the evening meal. The forest behind the settlement appears thick and impenetrable, a reminder of how wild this island still was. It is difficult to reconcile this image with the present day. Even in the mid-18th century, the urban sprawl had not yet clawed its way this far north. The people here lived at a peaceful distance from the frantic energy of the downtown port, their lives governed by the sun and the soil. But that peace was fragile. Jump forward a decade to 1775, and the atmosphere in New York has curdled. The harbor is no longer just busy, it is intense, crowded, and vibrating with anxiety. Ships are being built, loaded, and repaired around the clock. The docks are swarming with workers, but now British soldiers stand shoulder to shoulder with sailors and merchants. Supplies move in a constant stream between the warehouses and the water. This is the eve of the American Revolution, and the tension is palpable.
New York's location made it the ultimate prize. Whoever controlled this harbor controlled the throat of the continent. You can see the strategic density in the image. Large merchant ships jostling for space with small rowboats ferrying spies, messages, and cargo. The buildings along the shore are no longer just homes, they are warehouses of war. If you want to follow this timeline as we reconstruct the entire revolution, make sure you are subscribed so you don't miss the next chapter. In this same year, hidden among the chaos, a quiet revolution was taking place in communication. We see a building that served as one of the early postal centers, a node in a network organized by Benjamin Franklin. Before this, news was a luxury. Letters took weeks to travel, and rumors outpaced facts. But the postal system changed the physics of information. For the first time, news traveled predictably. This building didn't just move mail, it moved the ideas that would burn down an empire. Political treatises, reports of British aggression, and the unifying cries of rebellion all passed through these doors. By 1776, the transformation is undeniable. New York is no longer a colonial outpost, it is a city on the brink of explosion. The waterfront is a dense thicket of masts and spires. Rows of homes stand cheek by jowl, churches puncture the skyline, and the wharves are hives of activity. The shoreline is defined, engineered, and organized. The city is ready to become a metropolis. But 1776 is also the year the world broke open. The Declaration of Independence was signed, and the colonies were in open rebellion. New York, with its deep harbor and strategic rivers, became the target. The waterfront scene we see now is a city on the edge of a cliff. After the disastrous Battle of Long Island, the British captured the city, turning it into their headquarters for the remainder of the war. From 1776 until 1783, New York was an occupied city. This image of British soldiers marching through the streets captures the suffocating reality of those 7 years. Officers ride high on horseback, looking down at the civilians, who watch from the sidewalks in silence. The scene feels controlled, orderly, but underneath there is terror. During the occupation, a massive fire ripped through the city, destroying a quarter of the buildings. Food was scarce, neighbors turned on neighbors. You were either a loyalist, a rebel, or a prisoner. New York became a nest of spies and military operations, a place where freedom was a memory and martial law was the reality. For 7 long years, New Yorkers lived under the boot of a foreign army, surrounded by the charred ruins of their own city.
When the war finally ended and the British ships faded over the horizon, the city was battered, physically and emotionally scarred. But the end of the occupation was also a reset point. These images reveal a version of New York that is almost impossible to imagine today. A place of snow-covered villages, quiet agrarian rhythms, and the terrifying intimacy of war. It was a place shaped by everyday people who endured extraordinary change. By the time the smoke of the revolution cleared, New York was ready to ascend. It would soon become the temporary capital of a new nation and eventually the greatest city on earth. But it started here, in the mud, the wood, and the water. This early history is a reminder that New York has never been static. It has always been a creature of movement, trade, conflict, and resilience. Even in the 1700s, it was already dreaming of what it would become.